Hi, this is Max Gotcher here with Dr. Mike Abernathy, and we're going to spend just a couple of minutes kind of talking with each other and talking to you about, maybe giving you some thoughts about why dentists don't succeed, or if they realize that they're not at the level of success that they would like to have achieved,
right,
at whatever point in their career they're at. Why don't they reach out for help?
Yeah, and I have trouble understanding why people don't do that in a way. I mean, I was never a natural born anything. Nothing came easy, right? I mean, and it's surprising to me that I never really played sports. I took up tennis when I was 40, and gosh, within a year and a half, I was beating the pros that were teaching me. I mean, it's like, I can do this. Okay, I mean, it's like I wasn't big enough in high school to play football or basketball or something like that. And so it just always came natural to me that I just felt like I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. In fact, the first year that I got out of dental school, actually a year and a half, I visited 20 or 30 practices. I think it was 22 practices that all did over $1 million a year.
That was a really big number at that time.
Okay, at that time, Bob Lavoie wrote a book called The $100,000 Practice.
A year.
A year.
Yes.
And that was considered to be almost,
very few people
4 or 5 times what the average doctor would do.
Right.
And so I was sitting at the back of a Dick Barnes seminar, and I'm taking notes, and I finally said, "What did he say?" The guy said, "Oh, he said that you shouldn't be using Duralon for a permanent." I write it down, and I said, so we started talking, and his name was Bubba Yates. He's from Utah. He said, I said, "So how much do you produce a year where you are?" He said, "Oh, it's not that important." He kept putting it off, but I finally found out he did $1 million. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, you do more in a month than I do in an entire year, okay? And
you were working hard.
And I was working real hard. And I was working, I was doing my own lab work. I was a lab technician for his business. I was doing my own lab work, and I was working 6 days a week. And I worked 2 days a week at the McKinney Job Corps because they paid me $150 a day to do it.
Yep.
Okay, to take out teeth. Okay, so I went, "Could I come watch you work?" Okay, and I went. Now, after that first visit, now keep in mind, it's 1975. There was no dental economics, I don't think, because I never got it. There were no speakers, there were no internet, there was no videos, there was no way to translate the winner's knowledge and culture and systems to everybody.
Yeah, you really were isolated.
Yeah, it was. But again, that was a time where everybody had tooth decay, and it was basically just bread and butter dentistry, and
sure.
We didn't have cosmetics, we didn't have any products to sell them. Okay, so I went. Now, I was really surprised when I got through. I watched him for a day and a half, and I had to fly back, but he was like short, kind of chubby, bald. Okay, so he wasn't any better looking than I was. His office was older than mine. Mm-hmm. His staff wasn't any better. His dentistry was anywhere close to as good as mine, I thought, Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm scratching my head. I said, how does he do $1 million? And I struggled to get $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So I said, do you know anybody else that? Oh yeah, I know Ken such and such and so. And I went.
All the big producers know each other.
They do. Yeah. They do, and you don't hear them talking about it. Okay, it's just they
didn't
quietly.
Then for sure.
They what?
You didn't then for sure.
Well, you still don't hear a lot of the big producers.
Right.
I mean, they don't care to get into that type of deal. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I go visit him, and then I go visit the next guy. And at the end of the year, I figured out that these people had nothing that I didn't have, and maybe not the skill set I had, and certainly my location was as good, if not better than they had, and the next year I did $1 million. Now, did I have the systems and protocols we have today? No. It was just in the infancy of developing them. But I was marketing in 1975, right after the Supreme Court said it was okay, and I must have gotten calls from the state board maybe 10 times that first year. Now, they're tasked with looking at any complaint that comes in, and they have to research it. So I get a call and said, "I'm getting a complaint from another dentist in McKinney that you're marketing." Okay. I did. Okay. Now, I come from 70 registered attorneys. I was not breaking the Dental Practice Act, but they didn't like the fact that I was marketing.
Right.
Okay.
Threatened. They were threatened.
Okay, yeah, but no one marketed. I marketed. Mm-hmm. So I was this no, I wasn't a quick adapter necessarily on everything, but on that I'm going, this just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, the first ads I did, I drew, and they put it in a penny saver. I mean, they didn't have, computer generated
graphics,
art. So,
yeah.
okay, no graphics. Okay. So, next thing, I always had a lab technician in my office. Now it was me for a while, but then I got Bob to come. Bob Hart. Okay. So lab technician. No one had lab technicians in their offices. Then I had multiple doctors. No one had multiple doctors back then.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of this change. So I always looked for help. Now I would have to say, with all the consultants and mentors I used and what I paid, I got more than my money's worth. My money's worth. Okay. Now I had one that I hired, paid, and then I went to meet with him at lunch, and I said, well, Kathy was my office manager. I said, where is he? And he said, we fired him.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he wasn't at the level we need to be. Most consultants have never been there, done that, ever. So they're limited by what they can actually share with you. So I invested that money. I went back and checked what I invested on average a year over a 35, 37-year career. And it was just under $150,000 a year. Now that included, if I took all the staff for 4 days, my cost of doing all of that.
Right.
But I kept investing in that every year, and I kept, feeding my brain with positive, at the time there were cassettes, on positive messages on leadership and stuff like that. I realized that dental practices were 10, 15 years behind other consumer-driven businesses. So I started making myself read and study other businesses to see if I could denticize it to this. And so I have a hard time understanding why anybody would want to try to reinvent the wheel when by hiring somebody, they could go from A to H in the first month just by not making mistakes.
Yep.
I literally think that if you took a young doctor and we could come in and work with them for just even 12 months, it would be like getting a 10 years education. It would put that much on it. And we work with doctors where we got them completely out of debt in 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's just a totally different way of looking at things. So they don't know what they don't know.
And yet still, if you read the statistics, there's still a high rate of suicide among dentists, more than any of the other professions, I think. Some 60% plus of them have been divorced, some multiple times. Maybe close to half of them have had some kind of drug or alcohol problems. They don't really like what they do.
Right.
They probably wouldn't recommend it to their friends, relatives, and neighbors. They don't want their kids to become dentists, right?
Right.
And yet, they still typically make an above average income.
So money can't buy you.
Well above average income. And yet, only maybe 4 or 5% of them are able to retire with any kind of financial security.
Right. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine at age 62, 70, you can't retire after having millions of dollars go through your fingers?
Yeah, well, I can imagine it because you do too. We talk to these doctors
all the time,
every week. That's probably the majority of the phone calls. Yeah. Would you say more than 50%? Yeah.
Everything hinges around money.
Well, yeah.
90% of divorces hinge
around
on money too.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to reality not exceeding your expectations.
Yep.
You start off with certain expectations, and you can't make that happen. And it's almost like you get to the point where you're going, I'm just a bad person, or I'm just a loser, I can't do this. That is not the case. I've never seen a practice that couldn't do better. Okay, but in talking to doctors, I wrote down a list here, and I've got about 9 or 10 of these, and we won't spend a bunch of time on them, but I just, why would somebody not consider partnering with someone to help them do better, knowing that the return on investment might be, especially if you get to use it for the rest of your career, 300-400% of what you spend, okay?
Right.
I mean, it's like, how long, it'd be like if I came to you for a new patient and said, look, I can give you as many new patients as you want for $15. I mean, for each patient. How many would you like to buy this month? You're going, 100, whatever, 10, whatever it is. How long would you like to do that?
Yeah.
For as long as you've got patients to sell.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And so
it's like if you give me $1 and I give you back $5,
How long do you want to do
How
that?
long you want to play?
As long as I can. Okay, so I think we'll just get this one out of the way because this is the embarrassing one for me. Because it was when I was a dentist practicing every day. If I found a patient, I mean, it was weird because McKinney was small and it's gotten bigger, but it was surprising to me if I ever met anybody that wasn't my patient.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's like, why aren't you my patient? You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah, we'd be walking down the street and somebody'd be coming at us and he'd be going, who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
Yeah, because I know she's my patient. You know, it's like, okay. So the number one reason, not number one, okay, I don't know if these are in the order of importance, but
Right.
one of the reasons I hear a lot for is, and this is the same reason patients don't come back into your practice, is they don't trust you or they don't like you. Okay.
Fair.
Maybe they don't like what I say. I mean, what's the movie where Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. Okay, I mean, I know many times, especially earlier in my career when I was trying to help doctors, I actually told them the truth. I mean, I actually said, well, this is what it is, you know, and they didn't like it.
And I've heard that many times in practices when I've gone in, you know, and I'll say something that I probably shouldn't say. You know, like you say, it's just
It
the
was
truth.
not false, though.
I'm
It was
just
the truth.
holding the mirror up in front of you. You know,
Yeah,
I can't help what you're seeing.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, and you know, we'll have a meeting or something, and we'll go away, and somebody later in the day will pull me aside and said, you know, we've had other consultants in here. Nobody's ever said anything like that before.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't believe
They
you,
just-
you know.
You know, but you can't go in. You can't really help these practices if you just go in and tell them what you think they want to hear.
You can get them to spend money with you.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think that's a criminal act. I mean, if you really want to get better, you've got to see your warts and everything, you know,
Yeah.
that, okay. And everybody, I mean, same thing with my practice. I mean, I'm hiring consultants where they've never been in a practice doing as well as I did. Okay, and they still can make suggestions that I could do better. Because
Right.
you start working on that last 3 or 4% of being up there, it's harder to do that. You
Right.
take somebody that's just barely making it, it's real easy to double their practice if
Right.
they'll do what you ask them to do.
Right.
Now, again, so they don't like us, they don't trust us. Another one kind of similar to this would be, okay, well, yeah, I've done that before and I really didn't get my money's worth. Okay, so that's kind of a trust deal too. Like, what am I actually going to get if I spend this money?
Right.
Because that goes right into the third one. You know, it's like the investment of money versus what I get. I mean, it's very difficult to quantify this because if I'm asking you to do this, I'm going to have to explain to you that, you know, I'm not fixing you. I'm going to come alongside you. I can show you and train you with systems and protocols and clinical and just about anything you want to know about dentistry, but you still have to implement it. And you have to implement it in a way that it duplicates what we're asking you to do. Oftentimes, doctors and staff filter what we say.
Right.
And, you know, what's the game that the kids used to play where you'd whisper something in somebody's ear?
And then they'd whisper it. And then
Yeah,
they'd
and then
whisper.
by the time it comes back around to the end, it doesn't even resemble what was actually said to
That's
start
right.
with. Okay.
That's right.
So, you know, there are a lot of reasons why been there, done that, got nothing. Oftentimes, it's the doctor. I've had people hire a marketing guy and go, well, I spent X number of dollars with this marketing. I didn't get one new patient. And I went, really? And I said, not one? I said, how much did you pay? And he goes, oh, $60,000. I went,
Yeah.
not one new patient. Well, didn't they do this? Oh, yeah, they did all that. Did not one new patient. You didn't get any phone calls? He goes, oh, no, I got lots of phone calls.
200 phone calls.
Yeah, I just didn't get any new patients. Okay, well, it wasn't the marketing company's fault.
Right.
Okay, so oftentimes, if you don't understand that this is a partnership, you have responsibility, the doctor, I have responsibility as a mentor or consultant with you. If we don't both understand our roles and how important they are, and your role is probably more important than mine, nothing's going to happen,
Right.
or not as much is going to happen, okay? Why don't you speak on the next one? Procrastination?
Procrastination, yeah. You know, I mean, I'm as guilty as procrastinating on some things as anybody else is, you know, but the reality, the truth boils down to there's never going to be a perfect time. You know, if you keep waiting, and when this gets better, or when my staff gets stabilized,
Sure.
and I don't have so many new people, or when the economy gets a little bit better, you know, you can always do that, but you're just never going to arrive at the perfect time. And so you look up one day and it's 5 years later and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
You
Now
know?
is the perfect time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you're probably more desperate than you were 5 years ago, maybe. And I don't know. It just
Right.
it's overrated. Procrastination doesn't really get you any results.
And again, I think procrastination hinges on fear of failure. I mean, one definition of an expert is failing more at this one area than anybody else.
More or faster.
Yeah, and so let's just fail faster and,
Yeah.
and make it happen. It doesn't mean that you fail if you get back up and keep doing it. It just means, okay, that didn't work as well. But it's kind of like if you're going, let's say, 30 or 40 degrees off of the way you really should, and you correct, and you find out, well, I missed it by 2 or 3, degrees, you're still closer to having it perfect, and you got pluses, and you reassess and you redo it.
Right.
So again, it's frustrating me. I've got a son. I always ask doctors this that are going to hire an associate leading a partnership. Well, how long did you date your wife before you got married? And they go, gosh, we dated in high school, college. I guess it was 8, 9 years. And I said, well, then don't hire an associate because you're never going to be able to make a decision on that partnership because you're waiting for some type of perfect timing that's never going to be there.
Perfect timing.
When's the perfect time to have a child? There is no perfect time to have a child. I mean, it just happens and you cope and everything works out fine. So I've seen doctors that are burned out too.
Yeah.
Okay, now they know they need to make changes. And a lot of these doctors are looking at the time crunch of, okay, I'm getting closer to my use before date. I've got to do something with the practice so it's worth something to sell, or I have got to reap more profits out of it, or a profit out of it, by a certain length of time. But there's this inward emotional collapse where they're burned out.
Right.
Okay, and so that's a reason they won't do it. They just don't have the energy to do this. And again, I think most people have stopped believing in Santa Claus and God and anything else. There is a better way of doing things, and there is a way to have success no matter where you are. I mean, there's always, it's funny, you'll have a place that's way over competitive,
Right.
and a bunch of people are struggling. There's always 1 or 2 practices that are doing
They're doing
incredibly
really
well.
well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're usually people that embrace the things we're talking about.
Yeah.
This coming to grips with the fact that you need help.
Yeah. Admitting to
That's tough.
to yourself.
Well, I've got a
First of
doctorate
all.
and a master's, or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
BA and a doctorate, and
Yeah,
stuff like
4.0
that.
in biology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the Omicron Kappa Epsilon is the top 10% dental school, and I love talking to dental schools. And I say, how many of you are Omicron Kappa Epsilon? And they're going. Me, and I said, okay, everybody else, look around. These are the people who'll be working for you when you get, 10 years into practice, because they'll never make it. I mean, sometimes they struggle because they never struggled and strived in any aspect. It just came easy to them.
Easy.
Okay. So again, you're not a failure.
I equate that to, just because I like sports a lot, but, those guys like Tiger Woods when he was at his peak, or, LeBron James or Tom Brady, they all have coaches. They're not admitting failure to ask somebody else to maybe critique them or offer pointers on how to do it just a little bit better, because they kind of realize that they have to be and stay at the top of their game to be at that level that where they are.
Well,
where
they generally got there by a close association with people that could help them.
Right.
And so Michael Jordan was more than happy to pay for a shot coach that the team didn't pay for. He paid for it just to improve that, or someone in golf to strike the ball differently or hold the club differently.
Or they hire a private chef so they can keep their body the way it's supposed to be.
Oprah turned 65.
That's right.
Okay. I see a lot of doctors that are afraid of a long-term commitment. I think a lot of marketing companies and consultants have gotten to the point where they'll only take you on if you sign a long-term contract where, whether they perform or not, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's one way to look at a long-term commitment. It's the amount of money that they have to come up with and the amount and time of the engagement that they have to do. They don't even know if they're going to like this. Okay, and so we don't structure that way currently. That you have to sign this long-term
Right.
contract.
Right.
So again, we're going to prove ourselves, every month with you.
Right.
Okay. It's hard for them a lot of times because when they want some, what is it, quantitative or qualitative? Both probably.
Both, yeah.
Quantitative usually.
Yeah.
Well, how much more am I going to make?
Right.
Okay. Well, how much are you going to be engaged in this? Or are you going to only do 20%? I mean, we've had clients that go, almost double their practice and go, I only did 20% of what you told me to do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you kind of go, are you like jabbing me with that, or you did great?
Is that a compliment?
Yeah, or what? It's like you could take that 20% and run with it, and
Yeah.
you didn't need all 100% of it. So I don't know. A lot of these doctors are a little bit averse to learning the business side of their practice.
Right.
Like those key practice numbers. Being able to look them up or find them or monitor or follow them. Mm-hmm. And part of that's dug into the fact that they're not willing to delegate some of these things or share it with their staff to create that culture and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So anything on that?
No, other than, it's absolutely true. Or if they do give you a number, it's just, a real typical one is you say early on in a conversation with a doctor, well, about how many new patients do you get per month, and
Right.
they'll say, 44, 45,
Right.
and you'll look back over 2 or 3 years worth of actual data, and they did that one time, 1 month, 2 years ago.
Right.
But that's the number that they've got stuck in their head. It's
Right.
not reality.
Right. Right.
So.
It's not. So, at Summit, one of the things that we insist on doing is having you fill out a growth analysis sheet. That just a simple spreadsheet. It's some numbers on 2 pages, and it creates the 3rd page that gives us a way to look at your practice, profile it, and give you individual answers to quantitate and qualitate what you need to do. Okay? We also take a look at your profit and loss statement for a 12-month period, so we see the inflow with the spreadsheet. We want to see the outflow and how you spend this or allocate the money to the overhead items and your profitability. And then we can also look at the schedule for a week and glean things from that. How you schedule, what types of patients you like, what type of procedures you like to do, how you've allocated your time, and how engaged you are in doing the dentistry.
And we deal with lots of doctors that may send us one of those 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Or maybe send us 2 of those 3 pieces.
Yeah.
And some send us all 3 of them, and then we have a nice conversation with them, and we think they're ready to get started and ready to move forward with
Right.
the process. And then it's like they just, like Columbus, they've just sailed off the face of the earth and they've just disappeared, and you never hear from them again. And these reasons that you've been talking about here, I think,
Could be part of it.
Could be part of it.
Again, the truth sometimes, probably what we do wrong, and again, there's no charge for this. It's just like probably what we do wrong is like giving a patient the whole treatment plan instead of what they
Right.
want to do. Most consultants will try to talk you into phone etiquette or some specific thing, and then add on things after that. I just feel like maybe we overwhelm you by actually telling you the truth, and again, and how to look at these numbers. I think bottom line is when we review these, we're not trying to tell you what to think, but have you look at it a different way and learn how to think about what a successful practice looks like.